The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is brought to you by Clinica Sierra Vista.
Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
Good morning, everyone. Good to have you with us. I'm Maddie Jansen alongside Alex Fisher.
Yeah, we have some breaking news from overnight. It's good news for some local drivers.
Yeah, it certainly is. After that storm rolled through, Highway 178 through the Kern River Canyon is back open this morning. According to the CHP, relentless rain over the last 11 days or so triggered a rock slide Tuesday afternoon in the canyon near mile marker 16. No one was hurt, but as you saw there, large sections of the westbound lane was severely damaged, making the road impassable. But the road is now fixed and back open for drivers. Around the state, officials in Northern California continue to deal with damage following days of those stormy conditions. Over the weekend, 2 storm-related deaths were reported, the coroner's office identifying the victims Monday. Strong winds toppled dozens of trees, many of them landing on homes and cars. Residents also faced power outages as a result of the storm. The National Weather Service confirmed yesterday that a brief EF1 tornado touched down in Calaveras County during Tuesday's early morning storm. Animals have been impacted by the storm as well. The ongoing rain, wind, and thunder has resulted in destruction and in some cases death on a local chicken farm. And the Sacramento Zoo released a photo of crews working to clear debris from the area. The zoo says it will remain closed through tomorrow because of storm damage.
Well, flights are back up in the air across the country this morning after coming to an abrupt stop on Wednesday. The Federal Aviation Administration is continuing a thorough review to determine the root cause of the problem. NBC's Bree Jackson is in Washington this morning with more.
Another day of frustration for flyers.
A little irritated, honestly. A little irritated. Well, actually very irritated, but what can you do?
The Federal Aviation Administration is blaming the nationwide delays and cancellations Wednesday on a computer outage, saying a corrupt file crippled its Notice to Air Missions system, or NOTAM.
I just worry that just one system or 2 systems had the ability to shut everything down.
Federal officials are investigating why both the primary and the backup systems, which provide pilots vital information they need to fly, failed.
This is the one that moves messages that pilots need on anything from a taxiway or a runway being out to an issue with a navigation beacon to maybe an upcoming military or space operation in a certain sector.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg says his agency is focused on figuring out what went wrong.
We need to understand why, with all of that redundancy, it still rose to the level that there had to be a ground stop.
Lawmakers want answers too, as Congress prepares to reauthorize FAA legislation.
Money's been thrown at the problem, and the problem seems to get worse.
Here's what we need for technology and software upgrades so that we minimize the chances that the system does this again. That's going to take funding.
The FAA says it's working to prevent disruptions like this from happening again. And the computer glitch follows a major meltdown by Southwest Airlines over the holiday, due in part to an outdated system. Airline experts say upgrades in the industry are needed. In Washington, I'm Bree Jackson for NBC News.
More classified documents from President Biden's time as vice president have been discovered. Biden aides found the second batch of documents in a location separate from the Washington, D.C. office he used after leaving the Obama administration. The president says he's fully cooperating with the Justice Department's review of the matter. This morning, new concerns about coronavirus once again as a new variant rapidly spreads across the country. For the 12th time since the pandemic erupted in January 2020, the Department of Health and Human Services renewed the emergency amid concerns over the spread of a highly contagious variant. Each emergency declaration lasts 90 days. When it was last renewed, health officials were concerned another winter surge of cases could occur. The new variant XBB.1.5 now accounts for 28% of all new COVID cases. Meantime, a new study finds that most people who suffer from long COVID will find relief within a year. Researchers from Israel analyzed the medical records of nearly 2 million people who sought COVID tests from the beginning of the pandemic through October 2021 and found many symptoms such as shortness of breath, loss of taste and smell, and other lingering symptoms tended to ease over time and may be gone within a year. Symptoms like muscle aches and shortness of breath did tend to get better over time, but did not totally resolve in some. Patients included in the study generally had mild illnesses and were concerned enough about their symptoms to make an appointment with their doctor, but not sick enough to be hospitalized. The study also pointed out that some individuals do not get better and continue to have symptoms over longer periods of time.
17 News is your local election headquarters, and we are now a full 2 months past the midterm elections. But the vote counting here in Kern County isn't over just yet. Just as the first recount request wrapped up, the ballot counting in the second recount in the Central Valley's 16th state Senate race just kicked off yesterday. 17's political reporter Maddie Gannon has the story.
Republican candidate David Shepard initially requested the recount after falling short of Democratic incumbent Melissa Hurtado by less than 24 votes. Now, Shepard did make up quite a bit of ground in that first recount, but not quite enough to close the gap, prompting him to ask for further inspection into Tulare County. And just when he thought it might all be over, at least here in Kern County, Hurtado asked for her own recount. In one of the closest state legislature races in California history, the second recount in the Central Valley's 16th Senate district race, now fully underway in Kern County.
It came from Hurtado's campaign, and it was for 150 precincts.
As Kern Registrar of Voters Amy Espinoza explains, Democratic State Senator Melissa Hurtado, who was sworn into the seat a month ago, requested the recount in 150 precincts in Kern, 8 of which were partly covered in Republican candidate David Shepard's first recount request of 70.
The results were no changes. They were consistent with what we had already certified to the Secretary of State, and we are confident that we're going to have the same result with this recount.
In the first, Shepard netted 3 votes in Tulare County, 2 in Kings, and 3 in Fresno, closing his gap behind Hurtado, but still falling short, prompting him to ask for a manual inspection of ballots in 8 precincts in Tulare, which the county hopes to finish by Friday. As far as the timeline in Kern,
we did streamline our process just a little bit, and so it is saving us a little time, but it is more than double the number of precincts, and so we do anticipate it taking additional time.
The person requesting the recount, in this case the candidates, pay for it, costing $6,000 to $7,000 a day in Kern, where for now the vote counting treks on. Shepard's initial recount request was for all 4 counties in the 16th Senate District. Hurtado is only asking for a recount in Kern County. That was the county she did the best in this midterm election. At the county elections office, Maddie Gannon, 17 News.
All right, your 17 Court Watch now. A man labeled the pillowcase rapist for sexual assaults committed in the 1980s remains behind bars as he awaits trial for failing to register as a sex offender. 71-year-old Ronald Feldmeyer appeared in court Tuesday for a hearing. His trial was moved to April. The case was previously set for trial January 17th. A jury convicted Feldmeyer of sex crimes, including 10 counts of rape for sexually assaulting 5 women in Midtown Sacramento in 1984, according to our sister station KTXL. He was sentenced to 67 years in prison, but became eligible for release under the elderly parole program. Court filings say Feldmeyer was released from prison in 2019 and moved to a sober living home in Bakersfield shortly thereafter.
New research this morning shows California is 3rd in the nation when it comes to peace officer fatalities. The National Law Enforcement Memorial Fund released its annual fatality report for 2021. And while some statistics are trending downward, others are not. 17's Tolly Anderson has this report.
This is a really hard day for all of us here. As where you all are seeing the statistics, we're reading the story after story after story.
The line of duty deaths are trending downward nationally, though firearm fatalities remain very high.
Yes, it's true. Firearms remain high. They're equal to last year at 64. However, if you look at decade over decade, we're trending at a 21% increase.
The National Law Enforcement Memorial Fund data is the lead authority on line of duty deaths. The number 1 cause was from being ambushed.
The number 2 cause of firearm fatalities is domestic disputes. That remains still right on top. That law enforcement officers are losing their lives going to domestic disputes and finding situations that are deadly.
2021 was the deadliest year on record, with 586 line of duty deaths. Traffic collision deaths also remain high, but have decreased 3% from the year prior.
I will say with most of these fatalities, we have to look at the importance of funding our officer safety and wellness programs. From the federal level to state to local to the corporations that are standing behind some of our organizations and funding these officer safety and wellness programs, that's what's bringing the numbers down. Because the more we can train and equip our law enforcement with best practices, the best equipment, we will be saving lives.
Currently, there are over 23,000 names of officers killed in the line of duty, dating back to 1786.
Is when you think of these numbers and you realize 204 of these fatalities were men, 22 were women. The average age of these law enforcement officers is 44. And the average number of children they left behind, 2. That brings it home. That humanizes it. And we all need to be out supporting these men and women who are putting their lives on the line every day.
I'm Tully Anderson reporting.
Now we have the full fatality report on our website, kget.com.
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.